Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real head-scratcher, a phenomenon that has puzzled people for centuries. These weird, glowing balls of fire that just seem to pop up out of nowhere. We're talking about the mystery of ball lightning.
Okay, let's set the scene. It's Milan way back in 1841. A huge thunderstorm is just hammering the city. All of a sudden, people start shouting, "Guarda, guarda, see," and they're all pointing at this reddish-yellow ball of fire that's just floating down the street right at window height before it smashes into a church tower and explodes.
And you know, this wasn't some isolated incident. For hundreds of years, people have reported seeing these bizarre glowing orbs. For a long time, they were just written off as ghost stories or maybe tricks of the eye, even UFOs. But what are they, really? What is actually going on here?
To even begin to crack this case, we've got to start with the evidence. And for a very long time, the only evidence we had were these incredible stories, the first-hand accounts from people who saw it happen.
Now, this account from 1878 is a big deal, and here's why. It came from a trained scientific observer, O.C. Marsh, a famous paleontologist from Yale. He wasn't just some random person. He described, in detail, this pear-shaped pink globe coming down, exploding on the deck of a yacht, and leaving behind this really sharp, distinct smell, kind of like ozone. When you have a respected scientist giving a report like that, people start to take this mystery a whole lot more seriously.
And what's really wild is that when you start piling up hundreds of these stories from sailors, from pilots, from scientists, a pattern starts to emerge, a really clear one. The descriptions are shockingly consistent. We're talking about something roughly the size of a basketball that only lasts for a handful of seconds, it often makes a hissing sound, and it leaves behind that same weird, sharp smell that Professor Marsh mentioned. This consistency, well, that's our first major clue that we're dealing with a real physical thing, not just a bunch of random stories.
And listen, these sightings are not just some ancient history. We're talking about modern times, too. In 1938, a meteorologist watched one burn a pilot's safety belt right in the cockpit. Then in 1963, a radio astronomer saw a glowing sphere just calmly float down the aisle of a commercial airliner. I mean, can you imagine? These were highly trained, credible observers. And that last one on the list, from 2012? Oh, just you wait. We're coming back to that one because it is a total game changer.
So we have all these consistent reports from credible people. The next step in any good mystery, right, is to start ruling things out. We need to figure out what this thing isn't. The number one case of mistaken identity is something called St. Elmo's fire. Now, it sounds all mystical, but it's actually a pretty well-understood electrical glow. It shows up on pointy things during a storm, like a blue flame that seems to cling to a ship's mast or an airplane wing. The key word there is on. It's stuck to an object. Ball lightning? It's the exact opposite. It's a free-floating sphere that sips around all on its own. They're two totally different beasts. So what do they have in common? Well, they both involve something called plasma. And don't let the sciencey word fool you. Plasma is basically just air that's gotten so zapped with electricity that its molecules literally break apart and release that energy as light. It's considered the fourth state of matter, after solid, liquid, and gas. It's the same stuff that makes lightning flash and neon signs glow.
But here's the huge problem for scientists. You can't just set up a camera and wait for ball lightning to show up. It is way too rare, totally unpredictable. So how on earth do you study a ghost?
Well, the answer is pretty brilliant, actually. If you can't go out and find it, you try to build it yourself. A team of scientists at the University of Tennessee took on this exact challenge. They decided they were going to try and recreate one of nature's most elusive phenomena, right there in their lab.
And this was their setup. Now, you might think you'd just use one giant jolt of electricity, right? But that just creates a huge bang, a shockwave that destroys everything. So instead, they did something clever. They used a bunch of lower power transformers, the kind used for neon signs, to sort of gently feed the energy into the air nice and slow.
And check this out. It actually worked. By feeding that energy in slowly, they could create this stable little disk of plasma. Because it's hot, it naturally starts to rise, and it forms this self-contained glowing ball that literally detaches from the power source and floats all by itself, just like the eyewitnesses said. Now, these little plasma balls they created lasted for up to half a second after they cut the power. I know, half a second doesn't sound like a long time, but trust me, in the world of high-energy physics, keeping a ball of plasma stable for half a second with no power is a massive, massive achievement. And here's how they proved it was working. This is called a streak photograph.
Basically, the camera shutter stays open as the film moves, so you can see time moving from left to right. That giant bright flash over on the left, that's the instant the power is on. But that fainter, glowing trail that keeps going to the right, that's the plasma ball, still glowing and floating upwards completely on its own. So this incredible lab work proved that a stable ball of plasma was possible. But what was the secret ingredient out in the wild? What was powering the real thing? The next piece of this puzzle came not from a lab, but from a totally accidental discovery out in the real world.
Remember that 2012 sighting I mentioned? Well, here's what happened. Scientists in China were out studying regular old lightning. They had high-speed cameras and these things called spectrographs, which are basically like a chemical fingerprint reader for light. And then, by pure dumb luck, a ball lightning event happened right in front of their instruments. They not only got it on video, but for the first time in history, they got its chemical signature.
In that spectrum was the Rosetta Stone for this whole mystery. It showed the glowing ball was full of silicon, iron, and calcium, the exact same stuff that was in the dirt on the ground. And that led us right to the leading theory we have today. Step 1, bam, a huge lightning bolt hits the ground. Step 2, the insane heat instantly vaporizes the silica, which is basically sand, in the soil, creating a little cloud of silicon gas. Step 3, this hot ball of gas then floats in the air and slowly burns, or oxidizes, releasing all that energy it soaked up from the lightning strike as a steady glow.
So, there you have it. After centuries of being a ghost story, a legend, a sailor's tale, the mystery is finally coming back down to Earth. It's not something supernatural. It's this incredible, rare chemical reaction between the raw power of the sky and the very ground beneath our feet.
And this is what's so cool. We thought we had things like lightning all figured out, but this just goes to show you there are still these huge, fundamental discoveries waiting to be made. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? What other amazing things are happening right over our heads, just waiting for us to be in the right place at the right time to finally see them?